All right, well, good afternoon. I'm going to start working on getting all those monitors mounted. It was a Peter running all those wires for those monitors, but finally got them all into the bathroom so I can now get the two monitors mounted up and what have you. So that should just about wrap it up. Get those monitors mounted and test everything, and we should be done. Hopefully everything will go fine with the testing. So let's go get those monitors installed and do some testing and hopefully call this project a wrap. So I'm starting to put some things back together. I'm done with that run for the displays. I've got it in a split loom attached to the wall and run up the wall. And I'm fixing to start putting the false bottom back on. Well, the staples that they put in here were a pain in the butt, plus they glued it. It ripped the wood a little bit. I'm just going to use a couple of flathead screws for the three sides because these two back sides are screwed into the sidewall. So I'm just going to put a flat screw here, here, and here. Give me easy access for future if I ever need it. There we go. Things are starting to come back together. I still have that mess to do. I decided to go with just two screws, one right behind each corner, and that's solid, not going to rattle. So things are starting to get back put together. All right, got the inverter controller or display installed. I put it inside of the medicine cabinet. Got it attached to the wall. I did not reset it because I'm still not so sure I like it. But the wire comes in along the edge, tacked along the edge, underneath this false bottom, which I still need to attach, and then through that wall into this bundle and mess of wires here. Not the prettiest, but again, like I said earlier, the only thing I need this for is the remote on-off. All the other information that it displays comes on the shunt display, which, by the way, I've got to cut some wood and get that mounted yet. But anyhow, we're just about done with this project. I mean, I can't believe how long this has taken, but we're getting there. So here's where I'm at. This is the water heater. Blue tape on the electric so it doesn't actually get turned on. I'm going to, you can see it was mounted right here. You can see where the screw holes are. I'm going to mount it over here. So I measured over for the screw holes, got those lined up, took measurements. I brought my calipers in. Took measurements from the center of this hole to the edge of this wall so I know how far. So I measured from here back over to here, and that's what I'm going to cut out, and that's where the water heater switch is going to go. Then I got to figure out how to mount the shunt display right there, but that's what I'm working on. So just an update, this is just really thin plywood, and I don't want to be using a bunch of power tools with all the wires that are back there, so I'm just scoring it with my utility knife. Kind of hard to do with one hand, but I'm just taking my utility knife and cutting the wood slowly but surely in all directions to get that out. Making progress, but when you use your utility knife, be extra careful. I got to go get a Band-Aid. I've got the main control panel just tacked up there real quick. I've got a new hour meter coming for the generator tomorrow. When they replaced this under warranty, they put a bad hour meter in. So when I get a new one, I'm just going to hook it up. But anyhow, that's up there temporary. I've moved the water heater over. And now this is going to go here. I'm going to butt it up against the water heater so that the hole doesn't show. Just like that. But of course like that. However, looking at the details of this, I don't know if you can see it or not, they've got little plastic springs. There we go. And they go right up to the edge. I don't know if that's in focus or not. I'm not sure how that's going to go in there and stay in there. What I'm thinking is the thickness of the plywood. I cut this little tab so that when I push it in, that little tab will have the thickness of this plywood and it'll pop back up and hold itself in place. That's about the only thing I can think of at this point. I'm going to mess with it a little bit. Again, using my calipers, I measured the monitor and measured out my lines on here. This is what's got to be removed, and that will fit the back side of this. You can see the lip is not very thick there. Maybe 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch. So there's not much room to play there. Again, I think I'm going to have to cut these tabs the more I think about it. But let me go ahead and get this cut out. All right, I'm starting to cut the hole for that display. And I've decided to use my oscillating saw with the round bit on it. I've just measured like 3 different times, and I know I need to be just inside that line there, and I'd rather cut it a little so the hole's a little small and have to go back with my knife and clean it up, but nothing worse than cutting a hole in the wall. But I'm just taking my oscillating saw and outlining it. I will trim it out with my utility knife when I'm done. Okay, moment of truth. Let's see if we're even close. Nope, we definitely need to make it a little taller and a little wider. And that's fine. I was expecting that. I would much rather, using power tools, cut it too small and then just go back and scrape it a little bit and open it up a little bit with a knife. So let's see if I can get it to squeeze in there. All right, I'm getting closer. I've got my right left so I can get that in. And height-wise, I think I need to scrape off the top more so than the bottom. But I still can't quite get in vertically. I need to a little bit more off the top. And I am literally just taking my utility knife and shaving. A little bit at a time. Again, I'd much rather spend an extra 10-15 minutes taking a little bit at a time than going too far. So anyhow, we're almost there. Here we go. I taped the control wire for the display to a wire that's stuck here permanently, just in case it ever comes disconnected and falls. As far as the notching is concerned, I don't know if you can see it, but I actually put just a little bit of a notch where the tabs are on this. So let's go ahead and put this in. Kind of difficult to do one-handed, but come on, wire, get in there. There we go. See how the tabs just fit in there? Let's see. Yep, and it snapped right in. There we go. The display's in. I've got this back up. Again, there's an hour meter being delivered today, so I'm going to replace that meter, and it just snaps in once I replace the wires. However, the new one, I'm going to go hook up to a 12-volt battery for 12.5 days to get it to match the generator. Got that in, got the false floor in. I still need to cover the wires behind the commode, but it's in. It actually looks a little bit better than I thought it did. I got it pretty well centered. Kind of wish they were the same color, but oh well. Anyhow, that's just about it. A few more things to clean up and we will be completely done with this project. Okay, you just finished watching me put the final display in. And before I did all my tweaking things like cleaning up my zip ties, tails, and putting an insulation up there, I thought I'd do some testing. So I turned the air conditioner and the microwave on all at the same time, and I was drawing over 240 amps according to the display coming off of the shunt. And I came down here, and with just the air conditioner on, right now I've just got the inverter on, just the inverter, I'm drawing 5 amps going into the inverter, coming out of the breaker. I've got 4.9 amps on the 2-watt wire going into this 300 amp breaker. And I've got 5 coming out. So I'm losing 0.1 of an amp in this breaker. The inverter was drawing 51%. According to the display I mounted in the medicine cabinet, I was drawing 51% of the capacity of this inverter. I came down, I checked this. I was drawing 130 9 amps, and this 300 amp breaker popped. So 139 coming out of that breaker. I had 137 going into it when the air conditioner was on. So 100, let's call it 139 coming out, and a 300 amp breaker popped, and it was too hot to touch. So I'm thinking I either have a bad breaker or I went too cheap. So I'm going to try another breaker. I got 3 of them. I'm going to pull this breaker out and change it out to a different 300 amp. The same brand, came as a package of 3, and see if that one does it. And if it does, then I'm just going to say these resettable breakers are just too cheap for 300 amps. And I'll put in a 300 amp busman fuse. So before I do that though, I haven't tested my DC to DC. It's kind of glary. My DC to DC. So I'm going to go ahead and fire up the chassis engine and see how many amps we're putting in to the batteries from the DC to DC. That guy right there. So let me fire up the chassis engine and start measuring there. So I'm sure many of you are aware that there's a plate up here above the accelerator with some rubber knockouts for shoving wires through. That's where I shoved through my air dump. That's my wire that controls my air dump valve. And I just shoved this wire through. And I have bought a double pole, double throw, 2-position, 3-position switch that I'm going to mount right here, I think. And this is the wire that I'm going to do it with. So what is that wire going to do? So the wire came out. There's that other panel. I don't know if you can see it back there. I don't think so. Where that yellow air line is, this is the loom that I put my air dump wire control valve in, and I just shoved the wire in there with that, and it's going down underneath. As you can see, I'm pulling the wire right now. I'm putting it in the loom, up and over the def tank, and it's going to come into the battery compartment. So that wire is going to give me an on-off switch on the dash so that I can shut off the DC to DC controller. Right now it's rigged so that whenever the ignition is turned on, the DC to DC turns on instantly before I even start the engine. So it starts drawing massive amperage from the chassis batteries. Starts drawing massive amperage from the chassis batteries before the engine's even running to try and charge the DC to DC. Not good. I want the engine running. So that's why I want to be able to shut it off. The other thing is the lead time DC to DC has another port on it that if you feed 12 volts into that port, it takes it from a 60 amp DC to DC down to a 30 amp. So what I'm doing is I'm putting in an on switch on the dash. Middle will be off. Up will be 60 amp control, and off, and then down will be 30 amp. And that way if I'm fighting traffic, high heat, things like that, I can shut it off or turn it way down. But if I'm out on the freeway cruising, I'll be able to just run it at 60 amps. So there's the wires that I'm doing. I'm putting it all in loom, feeding it in over the def tank into the battery compartment, and then from the battery compartment I will feed it directly into past here and then into here. So that's what I'm working on. So where we're at, I ran the new 16 gauge 2-conductor wire through the hole in the wall. Well, actually, I ran it from the dash out into the engine compartment, down underneath, over the def tank, behind the battery compartment, up here, into this bay from the hole I have up there that I enlarged. Brought it down here. It's all in loom, and I've obviously cut way too much, but that's okay. This is the 2-conductor that's going to go up here, one for the 60 amp and one for the 30 amp. So that's what I'm working on while I'm waiting on the parts. The new breaker, I just got email, the new breaker should be here in the morning or tomorrow afternoon. So I'll be able to do the final test on this, make sure I've got that problem solved. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. Okay, here's an update on the inverter. Here's a cheap 3 for $23 on Amazon 300 amp circuit breaker I bought. at 137 amps, it started tripping, and when you touched it over here where it says waterproof, it got too hot to touch. I actually spent a little bit of money, did a little bit of research, and bought the T-Tocus, I guess it's called. I don't know, he was expensive, he was $33. However, I ran the air conditioner and the convection oven just for a few minutes. I was actually drawing 277 amps, and it didn't even get warm. Now my terminals got a little warm, but the breaker itself didn't even get warm, and it didn't pop, and I ran the air conditioner on the inverter for probably about 15-20 minutes, and it was drawing about 135 amps, and no issues at all. So that issue has been fixed. So my inverter system is working great. I'm loving it. Just the fact that I can run the air conditioner and the convection oven all at the same time on batteries is kind of cool. The DC to DC, I'm still working on that one. I have ordered some 2-watt wire because I put number 4 on there. As you can see, the number 4 wire, and that probably was a mistake. So I've got some more 2-watt wire on the way. I'll make up some new cables, and I will connect them directly to the batteries. Anyhow, that's the update of the 2 problems I've had. One is fixed, one I'm waiting on parts. So that's where we're at. So I'm doing some cleanup work. I'm still waiting on the new wire for the DC to DC to see if I can get rid of that voltage drop issue. But meanwhile, I had rearranged a bunch of stuff in here. So I have pulled out my label maker, and I've moved the rear AC up one. I now have a DC to DC that used to be an inverter, and I got to make an inverter tag. So I'm going to go ahead and start placing some of these. So what I did was I made sure that my list for what's on L1, L2, and the inverter is correct. And then, because I've got accurate readings, I turned on my inverter and measured how many amps I'm pulling when the refrigerator is on or off, how many amps I'm pulling when the cooler is on or off, and how many amps the TVs draw, and our basement freezer. I'm actually kind of surprised the basement freezer was only 4.3 amps, and our cooler that we keep under our table is 5 amps. So anyhow, I'm going to go type this up and put a new sheet up here. So I made a new list. All the items on line 1, all the items that draw on line 2, what items are capable of being run on the inverter, the refrigerator being switched if I flip the switch above the microwave, and then what the major draw is on some of the items. So anyhow, got that done and up there. Still waiting on my wire for the DC to DC. All right, still working on the DC to DC charger. I went ahead and purchased a double pole, double throw, 3-position, on, off, on another way. Switch that I'm going to use on the DC to DC. I'm going to cut a hole in the dash and put it right here. It's got similar bumps like my air dump does. I don't know, it doesn't look exactly the same as all the others, but it'll work. I should be able to fit it right in there. And my plan is, in the center position, the DC to DC will be off. Hit the up button, and it'll start charging at 60 amps. Off, hit the bottom button, it'll charge at 30 amps. That's what I'm working on. So in order to get that switch in, I've had to remove the parking brake. And these are all Torx. Just going to pull off. I got to pull off the dark gray all the way over, down along here, up and over the steering wheel. That whole piece has got to come off. And then once this piece is off, then I can take this piece out and access all the wires. And for the 12 volt, I think I'm just going to grab off of that because that's switched. The cigarette lighter is switched. So taking everything apart right now so I can get in there. Alright, I don't know if you can see this, but I got all the screws out. And now it's just a matter of lifting this up and off over the steering wheel. Put the steering wheel down. And off it comes. Look at that. And I'm just going to set it aside. Now, all the wires I want, I'm going to tap into here because that is switched. It goes on and off with the ignition, which is what I want. So I'm going to tap into that with a 12 volt to feed the center lugs of my double pull, double throw. And then I got to cut a hole. And then here's the wire I pulled up the basement. I got to feed that up underneath here and put some lugs on it to go on the switch. So next it comes off is this black or brown plate. Okay, there are 3 screws on the bottom. 1, 2, and 3. And that whole plate just kind of comes out. I'm not going to pull it too far out, but just remember, this is another episode of the 10 pounds of wire and a 5-pound wire container. Trying to keep it correct. Here's my switch that I put. Here's my switch for the air dump. The tape you see on the power locks. Originally, when I first bought the rig, I bought a remote control door lock. That did not work out. So I ended up just putting that door lock stuff all back together and decided not to have that. One of these days I may buy one and put it in there. But so yeah, I got to cut a hole down here. Tap into here. And then feed this wire up underneath through here. So I'm feeding my wire up through, and I just realized something, and boy am I glad I realized it now. This is the parking brake. This is a hole where they would put the parking brake for a trailer if this was a regular full-size semi. But that has got metal brackets there to hold all that. And where I was planning on putting the switch, there isn't room. It's going to go up against here. That just sucks. So there's all kinds of room over here. I guess I'll have to put it over here either above or below the air dump. I guess maybe I'll put it below. I don't know. But I'm glad I saw that before I started cutting a hole. Really glad I saw that. All right, I'm going to have to figure this one out. So I'm going to cut a hole in here to do the switch. Like I said, originally I was talking about doing it here, but because of the air parking brake, there's brackets back there. So I'm going to put it over here underneath my air dump. And here's the switch. It's going to go right here like that. That'll be off. That'd be 60 amps. That'd be 30 amps. So what I'm doing is I want it to be lined up with everything. So I've pulled out my calipers. I got the dimensions off the internet. I've actually calipered the switch itself and got the exact hole. And what I'm doing is I'm lining the top up with the top of the other 2 switches, and I'm lining the side up with the side of the air dump. So that's where it's going to go right there. And I'm going to take my little Dremel tool and just very gently cut that out. At least that's the plan. Let's hope it works. I'm going to try and do it from this side because I can draw. Otherwise, I can't really draw on the colored side. So we're going to give it a shot. We'll see how it goes. Well, I used my Dremel tool and cut as far as I can on either side, leaving the corners. Then put on a glove and grabbed a hacksaw blade and just took my time. I'm not expecting it to fit. I'm expecting I'm going to have to get a file and clean it up, but we're going to find out together. Yep, it don't fit. Height-wise, I think I'm good. Width-wise, I am maybe a 1/16 of an inch off. So I've got a diamond file, and I'm just going to go to town on it and see if I can get it working or fit. All right, just a little bit more. I ended up using a regular single cut file instead of the diamond file because it's perfect size and it's nice and wide, so I'm getting a nice smooth cut. But just taking a little bit off of each side. I think I got a pretty good square on there. I ended up filing quite a bit more out of there than what I cut with the Dremel tool. But that should be it. There we go, we got the width now. And now we got those little plastic clips. Oh, maybe I need to go, no, there we go. Perfect. I'll get my label and label it, but that's going to be off. That'll be charged to lithium from the alternator at 60 amp. Off, charged to lithium from the alternator at 30 amp. Off. Now I got to wire it all up. Actually, that don't look too bad. I wish it was a little flatter dull. This is a little shiny. Maybe it'll get dirty and grimy and match the others, but don't look too bad. All right, here's what I'm planning on doing for wiring of the double pole, double throw. These are just sitting in here right now. I got to crimp them yet. But the center lugs on both sides are where we feed in the 12 volt. Red is for up to 16 gauge. Blue starts at 16 gauge. And I'm going to put 2 wires in on this side. I am going to tap into the cigarette lighter 12 volt, which turns on and off with the ignition. So when the ignition's off, this is totally dead. When the ignition's on, we're feeding 12 volt to here, the center lug, and we're jumpering it to the center lug on this side. Then what I'm going to do is this, when I push the switch up, this will turn on from the switch from here to here and start charging at 60 amps. But I'm also, if I flip, and that's all I really need. So 12 volts coming into here on the center lug. When I flip it up, 12 volts coming out of here to the 60 amp plug to turn it on and charge at 60 amps. Jumping over to this center lug, when I flip the switch down, this becomes active. So now I'm jumping from here to here, so that this is now becomes active when I push the switch down. That will charge or turn on the charger. It'll turn it on at 60, but I'm going to tap in with my black wire here and feed the LC or low current on the DC to DC. So it'll only turn on, because this has to be on whether you're jumping to or turning on low current or high current. This has to be on. That's why the jumper. So without, or when flipping up, this will go on, feed it. When I flip the switch down, this will turn on to the low current, plus it also will feed the red wire going down to turn it on. So that's where I'm at. These are just sitting here. I was just making some measurements. I gotta crimp them. I'm gonna crimp right now. Kind of difficult to hold the phone and work on wires on the dash. This is the wire I fed up, the red and black. The red will turn it on at 60 and just turn it on, and the black will drop it down to 30 amp. So this is the jumper. I've got that crimped on there. For the 30, this is going to go strict to the 30 side only. Now where I'm at is I need to splice into the 12 volt positive going to the cigarette lighter. Again, I'm not going to be drawing any current on this. This is just a signal. If there's 12 volts there, it turns on. If there isn't, it turns off. There's no draw of power, so I'm not worried about tapping into the cigarette lighter. But anyhow, that's where I'm at now. I got to tap into that, jump off of that, and go into this blue one here. And I'm getting the plugs all plugged back in. I got to go get the leveling jack put back in here. Before I took everything apart, I don't know if you can see it or not, but I actually took a Sharpie, a black Sharpie, on black plugs and labeled everything. Driver window, exhaust brake, etc. I labeled everything so that all the plugs would go right back into place. So let me go get the leveling jacks, get that screwed back in, plugged in, and put the dash back together and give everything a try. So before I put everything back together, I've got this panel back on. I'm going to test everything before I punch everything in or put all those screws back in. Take my amp meter and go test. Obviously jacks are down, so that's working. And DC to DC. And right now I've got 0 amps coming in, 0 amps going out. Let me flip the switch. Flipped it up, that should be 60 amps. And I got 62 amps going into the batteries from the alternator and about 67 coming out. Let me flip the switch to the down position, which should be 30 amp. Off. Now it should be 30. Got 31 amps. And wow, I'm only drawing 25 out of the chassis. Yeah, I'm only putting in 23. The batteries are pretty well charged, so. All right. So all that works. The off. And check everything else. Window. Door lock. Window. Not going to mess with the regen. So everything works. We're good. Let me put everything back together. By the way, this trim, if you've never taken it off, is really easy. It snaps into place, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 screws. Really easy to take on and off to get access. Okay, we're done. Holy cow. I'll do a follow-up after we've used it for a while on how everything functions. But I added one more thing that I didn't document, but all my batteries come in here, and then all my power lines go out here, and I felt like I needed to put in a whole house fuse. So I've got a 500 amp fuse in there right now. I've got some 400s on order. I think on RVs, you're supposed to fuse within 7 inches of the batteries. I'm fused 3.5 inches from my battery bus, but those cables going to the batteries are 38 inches. So I don't know if you can consider that within 7, or if you're going to count that. I don't know. At any rate, got all that done. Got the inverter all in, 3000 watt. Got a switch to disable the BMI. Got a shunt. Got an AC to DC. Got a DC to DC. Everything works. I added an extra switch on that. So that is the end. I'm going to go around. That is, well, let's switch to wide angle, see how that goes. There we go. That is everything. That 3000 watt inverter, by the way, is more than enough to run the air conditioner and the microwave at the same time. It's pushing it though. It's running at about 90% of its capacity. So there is everything mounted. And I'm liking it. I really am. The only thing that I would have done different if I could is I really originally had the pole coming from the batteries equally spaced. I don't think it's going to make any difference between power coming in here and going to this battery. That's a 600 amp bus. I'm sure it'll be fine. But that's it. Let's continue on with the tour of everything done, and then we'll wrap it up. Okay, to continue on with the completed project, this switch here is for the DC to DC controller. 60 amp off, 30 amp. My choice. Got that in. I said I'm done, but I'm going to pull out my label maker and make a label that says DC to DC. And back here, we've got the shunt display, which gives me complete battery capacity, what the volts are, how many amps I'm currently drawing, or if that's a plus sign, how many amps I'm putting in, how many watts I'm drawing, and percentage of my 1120 watts. And then in here, oh, you get the big reveal. Are you ready? Sometimes that's just so satisfying. We have the inverter. Right now it's off. Let's go ahead and turn it on. Right now we're only putting out, let's see, 114 volts. Let's see what we got here. There we go, 1%. That's where I was telling you with the microwave and the air conditioner running, we've got like 91%. And we're putting out 60 hertz. So that's all in. That's in. All the breaker panels been redone to accommodate a 30 amp. Air conditioner's been moved over to the inverter panel. So there we go. There's a complete tour of everything being done. All right, let's wrap that up. Upgrade from 6 AGM, total of 600 amp hours of AGM batteries, which gives me usable of 300 amp hours, to 4 lithium batteries, totaling 1120 amp hours usable. Huge, huge, huge upgrade. It started off back in October when I started ordering the batteries. It is currently March, so it took me a while to get started, then do a bunch of testing and everything like that, and I've just taken my time. So I got my display here. I'm watching my batteries. All in all, it was a much tougher job than I thought. I've known some people that have paid $8,000 to $10,000 to do what I just did, plus parts. I have a total of about 4,000 wrapped up in parts. That's batteries, inverter, DC to DC, AC to DC, shunts, etc., bus bars, all that stuff, all the cable. I've got about $400 just in 2-watt cable. Took me a lot longer than I thought, and it was a lot more difficult, a lot more complicated than I thought. But now that I've done it once, I wouldn't hesitate to do it again if we ever get rid of this RV and get another one, which with as much effort I put into here, I probably won't be doing that anytime soon for sure. Lead time, they've been very, very responsive on questions. They are in China, so you send them a question one day, when you wake up the next morning, you've got your answer. They all but one time gave me a direct answer to my direct question. One time they got a little lazy and just sent me a picture and said, hook it up this way, instead of answering my specific question. So, but all in all, they've been very, very responsive. So far, all my testing, I've been very happy with the products, but I'll do a follow-up with that later. I'll do another video on the follow-up of lead time. I went with lead time on the inverter, the shunt, the chargers, and the batteries. Nothing else was lead time, the bus bars or anything like that, or wires or whatever. Yeah, I'd say it's going to be a good upgrade. We leave for Alaska next month. We're leaving at the end of April for Alaska. There'll be a lot of boondocking. That's one of the reasons I wanted to get this done right away. So after we get out on the road and spend some time at Harvest Host and Walmarts and what have you, and side of the road there in Canada, assuming Canada lets us in, I don't know. That's going to be interesting. They're not very happy with Americans right now. I'm going to do an update and let everyone know. So all in all, I would say I probably worked an average of maybe 2 hours a day, probably 3-4 days a week on this thing over the last few months. So there is a lot of work to it. I will be happy to answer any questions you have. I'll leave a comment, DM me, whatever. I will answer any questions you have on it, and I will do a follow-up video on it when we're all done. So thanks for watching. Assuming you stuck all the way through this, I don't know if this is going to be 2 or 3 videos, but thanks for sticking around for the whole thing if you did. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. Bye.